Splitting Hairs Podcast. Go big, go blue, go Jacks.
Welcome to the Splitting Hairs Podcast, where San Diego is not a state, Bison spelled with an S, and Wile E. Coyote never gets it done. Fellas, how's it going today on this lovely Friday afternoon?
Not too bad. Just enjoying a nice, Friday afternoon. It's gorgeous weather up here, up north. It's like sunny and 60, so ask for much better than that late October. So
yeah, Florida's in that weird transition period where it's 50 degrees when you wake up, and then by the time it's lunchtime, you're taking all your clothes off. Like, why did I even wear a long sleeve shirt?
Yeah, definitely. Texas is very similar. We go through 4 seasons in a day sometimes, it feels like, but right now it's still low 90s, high 80s, but definitely not going to complain about it because it's better than the high hundreds that we've been getting. So, or low hundreds that we've been getting most of the summers, early into the fall. But without further ado, we got to introduce Brian Williams, 2-time national champ for South Dakota State. And he was a defensive lineman, played a little bit 3-tech nose, right? Both.
Yeah, we did both. It really just depended on the play call and the strength.
Yes, sir. So part of the chain gang contingent that got it done over the last several seasons. And then prior to that, he dabbled in the state of Georgia, my home state, with Valdosta State. So Valdosta, known as Titletown, for those who are not familiar. I'm a Vikings fan, so Green Bay is kind of known as Titletown, but now we're gonna bypass that one. Valdosta gets that moniker. So, we're glad to have you, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Everything is crazy that it kind of really started with Valdosta State, smaller, division school, but we had to play, fun fact, we, during the COVID, we played Grand Valley State in like a little scrimmage, and Coach Bibbs was the D-line coach there. So, we were, going back and forth there for a bit, just laughing, cutting up some good times. But yeah, it was a blessing to get to go to South Dakota State. Really matured as a person there, I would say, and just really thankful for my time there.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. It definitely that tends to be the message that a lot of guys who come in from other states, Florida's a big one. We got quite a few Florida Jacks on the squad now. And whether it's Florida or another state or guys from South Dakota, they tend to say they grow up pretty quick at South Dakota State, and they got good mentors there and good leadership that you yourself got to be a part of, and part of a really historic run. But before we dive into all the good stuff about South Dakota State and the upcoming matchup, I want to address our sponsors. Big shout out to Utemark Insurance. Thank you for joining the pod as the title sponsor this year. For any home or health insurance needs, feel free to reach out to them, your local insurance agents. They can get you covered for all of life's obstacles that get thrown at you. Reach out to them today. And then our longtime sponsor of the pod, Cottonwood Coffee and Bistro in Brookings, South Dakota. They have the bistro, and then they have the coffee house on Main, where you can get all your fixings in terms of caffeinated beverages and tea and pastries and their seasonal menu. Don't miss out on all the good stuff they got there. And then obviously fresh farm to table food at the bistro, which is amazing. I worked there back in the day, eons ago. Loved it. Great people, great place to get some work done and enjoy some good company. So check them out, Cottonwood Coffee and Bistro. Now diving into the good stuff, or depending on how you look at it, horrible stuff. The game on Saturday. It was one that I think we were highly prepared for. It definitely, the product on the field showed, especially that defensive effort. Because it took really some absolute dots by Cam Miller and really primarily on that final drive to really secure the game. I think they caught us in a man look that they liked the advantage on that second down towards the goal line. But really, when you look at the whole complexion of the game, I think maybe the emotional swing got away from us, particularly on special teams, whether it's, Graham getting racked by a guy who's literally coming up under his crotch to losing his temper there and kind of tackling him. And then, you had just a kind of a lapse in judgment. Colby Humphrey punt coverage. I think he's just Colby's a very physical player. We love what he brings to the table. Definitely not a knock on him overall, but you got to be more heady in that situation. Not a punt returner. One of the Kusers got a holding on a pivotal kickoff return that Angel had, I believe, on the final drive. That hurt us. We had a holding on a different punt, I believe, that set us back. So several penalties on punts. Missed PAT, a doinked field goal, just playing kind of soft on the offensive line, to be quite blunt. And I think that, by and large, nobody likes to lose. Losing sucks, right? But sometimes when you've been on a run and on a tear like the Jacks have been, I think it kind of puts some things in perspective when you can play like absolute dog shit like that from the Jacks standard and still, punch the Bison in the mouth on their home turf and still, be set up late with an opportunity to win it all. So those are just kind of my thoughts overall without diving into group by group so far. But gentlemen, what were your impressions overall?
It felt a lot like that Iowa game where just both defenses absolutely they played great. They really did. NDSU was incredibly fired up, and they should have been. And obviously we saw how much that carried them. Ours did too. Man, our linebackers just flowed, and they were just all over the place. D-line was a brick wall. It was really fun to watch if you really love, I guess we'll call it a defensive struggle. That's what it was until about 2 minutes left in the game. And I happened to like watching that, so it was fine for me, although it was stressful. Offense, just left a lot to be desired. Again, credit to the Bison because they played really well defensively. But yeah, we just really played subpar in 2 of the 3 phases of the game. And you got to think there's stuff that you can just clean up through a week of practice, I would think that, you take care of 3/4 of the stuff that really went wrong. And, you'd probably be living pretty high in the hog if you can just get some of that stuff cleaned up. So all in all, you hate to, glorify a loss, but if you can glean something from that and go forward with it, clean that stuff up, and we'll probably be set, moving forward.
Yeah, it's worth noting right there before you share your thoughts, Brian. ESPN Sioux Falls just shared some odds, and the Jacks are still the front runner to win it all. So, and shout out to Montana Parlay. He's a big betting guy. He's a friend of the pod and of the FCS overall, but he himself will tell you, as Vegas goes, as the betting folks go, the odds are real money being placed on this. So that's important to take note of if you're going to buy into those stats. So, but Brian, as a guy who had a very recent tenure with South Dakota State and who was a very pivotal contributor on probably the most important unit, either 1 or 1A with the 605 Hogs, that you got to play damn good trench ball in order to win a national title, in your case too. How did that shape up for you in your eyes on Saturday when you were watching that unit?
Yeah, I feel like the defensive line just came to play. I told Stack, I was like, there's no way, they're going to be able to block Jared DePriest one-on-one. And I believe I was right. I think Jared was making a lot of plays. And honestly, I think we looked good. We might have missed here and there and had some boneheaded penalties, but at the end of the day, it was still Jacks football, And we dropped one game and, everybody's so fast and everybody's so quick to tell us what we're not. Mm-hmm. And I think that if I had to bet, I would believe that Coach Rogers is kind of loving the energy that everybody's putting out there, because at the end of the day, no one's going to get the guys ready to go more than him. So
bingo. No, that's a really good early synopsis. I couldn't agree more as far as the way the Chain Gang has really stepped up their level of play, in particular Jared DePriest, Max Balloon, Bryce Hawthorne, and then you got some guys on the edge that have really made hay as of late. Against some guys that are tabbed as some pretty decent offensive linemen on the other side last week. So I liked what they did. I think you hit the nail on the head when you gave your assessment on everybody wanting to jump off and tell us what we're not. I think it's really, really easy, especially because it's your fault. You guys spoiled the damn fan base the past 2 years into thinking that every game was kind of like, Mark's going to have every throw he wants because the Yankees are NFL caliber receivers, right? And then, which NFL tight end is he going to throw to, Kraft or Hines? And which NFL running back is he going to hand it off to, Pierre Strong Jr. or Isaiah Davis, or now potentially Amar and Angel? And then, that's not even until we get to KTV, another Florida boy who's about to wreck shop in his time in blue and white. So it's easy. They love you when you're up. They're the first ones to remind you of everything you're not when you're down. And so I think that it's always a pleasure for us to grab another athlete who played at South Dakota State and get him on the pod, because you guys obviously hold yourself to a higher standard than anything the fans would ever be able to do. And, I could say the same when we were playing. We would hyper fixate on things we should have done better, and we would just go to work on them. And I can guarantee you that's what Jimmy Rogers is going to get him ready to do. And I think you, me, Stack, and Scott were all talking. That Augie game felt way more like a loss than this past week. When you don't take care of business and the expectation is what it was supposed to be against a D2 opponent, and you still slap them around, but you kind of play with your food, that's way more disappointing than you going toe-to-toe and just, pound for pound, beating the hell out of each other against North Dakota State. And, you kind of make mistakes that make it difficult late. So I think that's a really, really good point. Nobody's going to hold themselves to a higher standard. When we look at penalties and mistakes and stuff like that, obviously we've hammered those, but I want to touch on one other thing too before I give you guys the floor. I think people who watch just as a casual fan don't understand the difficulty. One, when you're playing in a play, if you've never been to the Fargo Dome, I've played there. I've been at the Shoe at Ohio State in my brief time at the Big Ten when I was making my rounds in the recruiting trail. And then Purdue, Notre Dame. Purdue's not really a huge environment, but Purdue, Notre Dame's a pretty historic contest. Montana, we played there in the playoffs. There's not very many places that are louder than the Fargo Dome. And Brian, I'm sure you can attest to that as well, even being from down south where football is religion. I think when you get behind the sticks and you're off schedule and you're first and long, and then you try to run to get yourself into a more established position to open up more of the playbook, that's a nightmare, especially when you have a quarterback who's an RPO quarterback. Look, that is not a slight against Mark. That's not at all a slight against Mark. It's like he is Tebow-esque in some ways, but with a better throwing motion and probably more arm strength and definitely better able to get through a progression. But I will say he's a two-read guy. If his run game is working for him, he's in rhythm, he's in flow, things are good. If he's got to go through his progression, sit back there in the pocket, navigate the pocket with a pass rush, maybe not get off of his one or two read too quickly, and he's only going check down, I think the defense, that's advantage defense. So I just think that people need to keep things in perspective and understand Mark being an RPO, two-read QB is not a bad thing. We just need to set him up for greater success by not shooting ourselves in the foot. And that's all I pretty much have to say about the offense.
No, I would agree. Yeah. I would agree. I think, you always want to be in the favorable position, and big games, the mistakes are amplified. So
yeah,
you just clean up the mistakes, and we probably come out of there, pretty happy as a whole fan base.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty simple. We could sit here and analyze it to high heaven. I do think that we need to be more creative from an offensive perspective. I won't pull any punches there. I think for wide receivers not to touch the ball until I think there was 6 minutes in to the third quarter, that's unacceptable. Some of that's a function of the game flow too, but like, come on, we got to get them involved just to be more balanced and to be more crisp in our moving the ball down the field. I think some ways to do that, like I don't know that we even ran multiple formations multiple times on a drive. I know we were trying to throw a lot at them, which I like, but our tight ends have been relatively non-existent. So why not run some bunch sets with them, or trio as they call it? Why not split Brody Gormley out? His length in his catch radius is going to be a problem. Just doing some simple biomechanics here. When you have a guy that's super tall like that, it's a long lever. He can generate more angular momentum, which means theoretically, if he's a strong guy, which it seems to be, he can create explosiveness and pop when he's trying to run away from defenders. The problem there is he's also got more surface area because he's a tall dude and he can take a shot, right? So there's more body to grab cloth on and to try to get him down and disrupt that. But give him a chance. Put him out on the edge. Try to create mismatches and exploit aspects of the defense that, unfortunately, we saw North Dakota State do to the Jacks in the red zone on that final drive. I think they got Durant's in man coverage, which Durant's has been playing lights out all year. That's just sometimes the guy beats you that you're lined up across against, and that happened last night or last weekend. So that's kind of my take offensively. I know we got to get, not only do we need to get Wildy the ball, but we just need to be more balanced in our attack and in our looks. And I will say this, I was not aware of this, but it turned out to be a bigger issue than I thought it would be. Kirby Voorhees not lining up and not dressing last week due to some relatively inhibiting injury that kind of hurt us. Because I think had we established more of a power run game, and this is no slight to Amar or Angel, but had we been able to change some pace there, go with Chase Mason, go with Mark, gashing him in QB powers, or even when he's tucking it and running it to extend the plays, I think that would have just worn even more on that defensive effort and been more of a problem, as Amar could potentially bounce it. Same thing with Angel. But y'all's thoughts on that, on the power run game or lack thereof?
I think it seemed like, we were constantly, behind the sticks, 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9. I know our average was over 4 yards, even without the Chase Mason run. Mm-hmm. But with someone like Kirby, if you have him in there, you're probably looking at more 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6, to where your playbook opens up a lot more, which 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8, and then you get popped loss or another short gain. You're looking at 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. Your playbook's a lot more closed than it is when you're 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1. So, a lot more creativity offensively is limited when you're constantly behind the sticks. But again, like you said, when we didn't even try to get, Griffin and Graham the ball until well into the second half, I think there was one jet sweep and one tunnel screen that they had sniffed out, because they probably saw it coming, because it was the first time we tried to branch off from, inside zone like we'd been running the entire game. I know Stack was pretty frustrated with the lack of creativity there too, because the Bison had covered really well. So I'm not sure what the deal is, why he sat out, but it really would have been nice to maybe even like 1 or 2 more yards really opens up the playbook a lot more.
Yeah. And then, when you look at Amar has had such success this year, trusting his ability to bounce it, get on the outside, and just beat him to the pylon, especially when we're in goal to go situations, that I think sometimes bad habits can emerge. And I think Coach Rouse is probably obviously hammering certain things with them in practice this week, or has already. And in terms of trusting that A gap, pressing it, letting flow go back, and then hitting that downhill gap with more authority, I think could have potentially helped. I know there were a lot more creases and there was a lot more movement than people might have thought, just seeing Amar and both Amar and Angel bounce it. But that being said, we got to make sure we trust the Hogs to get it done up front. And then on the flip side, trust the chain gang and the defense to get it done as well. So This is
It
a really
looked like there was some cutback lanes available, but I don't know if they were necessarily looking for it. Yeah, like they just kept trying to bounce it out. But now seeing this from Dan Furman, Bison pressured Mark 42% of the time on dropbacks. That's insane. So I don't know what.
Is it surprising? It's not really surprising to me
what
because
I saw, but then just seeing it as a number, you're like, holy crap! Like
this is a great. Yeah, it's a great time to bring Brian in on this one. Brian, when you guys are in your film study and you see a quarterback that either has maybe a little bit of happy feet or he tends to kind of abandon the pass scheme early, you're going to light him up, right?
For sure. I mean, as a whole, I think in my time at South Dakota State, I think we moved more than anyone. So I understand that. And, from the offensive perspective, I can't really provide a whole lot, brother. I played defensive tackle.
No, it's all good.
I got my head beat in a little bit. I didn't really, get the luxury of making the play calls or, playing offense. So can't really provide any, perspective on that. But what I can say, though, is that if anyone's going to figure this thing out, it's going to be Mark. Mark's a great person, player, all around athlete. And like I would say, I can't wait for Saturday to watch Mark and the offense go out and play because I think it's going to be their best game yet. So
I
super excited for this weekend. Yeah.
You texted the thread last week, and I thought it turned out to be spot on and very prescient. But you said if Mark makes 5 throws in this game, we win it. And it turned out he made probably 3, probably had 2 on the table that he would have liked back. Mm-hmm. But that being said, again, that's film that you can mine. You can go back and you can go, look, these are areas I could have improved. Maybe I was a bit too juiced. Maybe I need to throw that corner route to Stoffel with some more loft. That was a hell of a play on that 3rd down that he extended to Graham where he scrambled. He was literally on the edge of the sideline and threw a damn dart. And really, Graham,
didn't have to jump.
He didn't have to jump, but he caught the damn ball. So it is what it is. But if ifs and nuts were candies and nuts, we'd all be fat and merry or have a Merry Christmas, whatever the saying goes.
No, but on that catch, it really looked like the defender knocked it out as he was laying there. So does he drop it? I don't know. I can't. You don't really get the great, SEC TV angles, so you can't really see everything. But
that's another thing. We'd be remiss if we didn't shout out Chase Mason too. He's an absolute dog when it comes to toting the rock. And, that Selly was so funny, man. The Costco guy Selly. I was so you could tell that Mark is just such a damn gamer because bro, what are you trying to do? Block behind the play like that. Right. It robbed the momentum right away from that play. So that's one thing that as a senior leader, we got to make sure we temper our excitement a little bit, which is so friggin' hypocritical coming from me because I was just like Mark I was a role player. I wasn't just like Mark. Let's make that clear. I don't want anybody getting confused there, which they wouldn't be. But as a fullback, I was trying to mix it up with every guy, every play, right? And so Mark has that tenacity. He's a dog. So, and just like you said, Brian, I would want no other quarterback in that room with me this week, especially coming up against a big rival. And but yeah, Chase Mason, absolute dog. Mark Gronowski, dog, just like that just like that viral clip, right?
Yep.
Kirby Voorhees,
you can go through the whole offense and just say dog. Everybody can play. It's just it comes down to execution, right? Who executes better?
Yeah,
it does.
And I believe we're going to execute this weekend here on out. So I can't wait to watch the guys play. Super excited.
Yeah. This is a good point because Scott brought this up and you were on the squad and you contributed really well against Iowa. So you didn't lose in 23 and your only loss at South Dakota State, for any of these recruits out here might be listening, your only loss was against Iowa. And really that game could have gone in our favor as well. So when you're looking at that matchup you guys had, what was it like diving into the film after that game I mean, because you guys beat the hell out of them too. What was it like learning from that, and how did you guys really launch yourselves forward throughout the rest of that campaign?
I think honestly the belief in everything came down to fall camp. I mean, that's probably one of the best fall camps I was ever a part of, and just being prepared for going into the game. And I believe you can talk to anyone. We thought we were going to beat Iowa. Like, you couldn't tell us anything different. I remember I was at my internship at NAI Sioux Falls, and they're like, "Oh, you guys play Iowa? Are you ready to play? Like, you guys should. Are you going to keep it close?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? We're going to beat them."
Yeah, right.
That's just the belief that Coach Rogers and everyone instills in you inside that program, is that we're gonna beat whoever we play. Like,
right.
That's the expectation, and I think that's what it goes the most, is like your belief in what you can do and how you prepare. Because how much you care, is how well you prepare. So,
yep,
you're going to play well.
Ooh, that's a bar right there. I like it. And that reminds me of something Conor McGregor said, and fits Jimmy's MO to a T. It's like when he took the head job, he did not come here to take part. He came here to take over. And you see that in his preparation, in his focus, in his recruiting ability, in his ability to digest strategy in real time. Thinking back to the UIW game when we had him backed up to the goal line, and they had just busted a long screen pass the previous possession, and should we light him up? Well, he walked through the kind of mindset that he deployed there to make sure that we maintain control of the game, and them getting the rock, I think, coming out of halftime played a part in that as well. So just in everything that he does, he's so hyper-focused, and that comes from Stig, but also comes from his own DNA, right? His mentors and his own DNA. And that's why I'm super excited to see, with this, big time opponent rolling into the Dana this weekend, another back-to-back primetime matchup game, this one being televised on ESPNU. And some pundits out there, particularly FCS Reddit, has stated that South Dakota might even be the best team in the Dakotas this year. So
said the same thing last year, but what do I know? I was only there, I guess.
Yeah.
Guess we'll find out tomorrow.
We will.
Yeah.
Which is a good segue into breaking down the Yotes here. So we're going to put to bed finally for this 24 campaign that the mayhem that was the Fargo trip. And I think it's highly likely we might run into them again. Got to shout out Miss Leanne Spalding. Thank you for listening. How much you care is how you prepare. I love it. Great. Thanks for listening to the pod, Leanne. And, as we talk about USD, we should know they're offensively, they've come a long way since having to can their previous offensive coordinator mid-season. And then the head man over there took the reins for a bit. And then it's kind of fitting that USD is now starting to do well with a South Dakota State former player and coach. So
funny how
kind
that
of
works.
funny. Shout out to Josh Davis over there with the Yotes. I hope we make his life miserable tomorrow. Love you, JD, but we're going to give you the business, I think. And then, when you look at some of their players, obviously Bauman has great football DNA. He's really made some strides. It's very awkward looking at lefty quarterbacks, though. I must say it drives me up a wall. My uncle played at quarterback at Purdue and Toledo, and watching him throw the ball, to me, he's a lefty, is friggin' bizarre. I would hate it as a receiver. And it's just funny. It's just funny watching them progress because, they got athletes pretty much at every level. They have AJ Coons, who was, I don't know, Brian, was AJ on your team in 22?
And yeah, the first national championship run, he was there.
Yeah, and I think he even made a pivotal catch in the not necessarily like a game-altering catch, but he made a good catch in the Natty too, I believe. Spent 1 year
Western Illinois, I believe.
in purgatory at Western Illinois, and then landed with Coach Davis, no doubt, probably being the connection there at USD. So, so they got guys. They got guys who played a lot of important ball. They got guys who are showing up in the stat sheet. I think it's Charles. Is it Charles Pierre who's been balling? Yep. I've been watching him.
Him and Travis Tice.
Travis Tice is obviously a familiar name. Very physical running back in between the
Mhm.
tackles. Really, the last time at the Dana that we saw them, which would have been 22 in Brian's junior campaign, he started getting off early, and then we just put the clamps down over time and really shut them down. Brian, you're the expert on this because you're so close to your playing days. What's their offense like in terms of the trenches?
They're, I don't know, but
If you've got nothing nice to say, what is it? You don't say anything, or is that?
yeah, I mean, that's what I was trying to think of. Is like they don't really come off the ball, if I'm honest.
Okay.
If I remember anything, they're just movement blockers, just trying to like hold you up into where you're going. And I think the only way to stop someone who runs in between the tackles is how well your D-line plays.
Mhm.
Right.
I think we have the best D-line in the conference. So I look forward to the challenge with, Jared and Max, and all the guys. So
Yeah, I
we're
mean, they're
excited to watch
rushing
them.
for sure. They're rushing the ball at a really nice clip across the board with Travis Tice and Charles Pierre Jr. leading the pack. Stephon Logan was a historical player for the Yotes. His son, I think, is also. I think it's his son. I think they did a feature on Midco, but he's in the backfield over there for them as well. They got LJ Phillips Jr. also toting the rock. He's got over 100 yards on the season, averaging 5.7. Logan's averaging 8.2. Travis Tice is averaging 6.9, and Charles Pierre Jr. is averaging 6.7. Now they haven't played a winning team yet outside of Wisconsin. That is so. I mean, you can only be where your feet are and do what you got to do when you got to do it against your opponents. So it's not a slight to them, but it should be taken in context within a bigger picture that they have not played a team with a stout record so far. It is important to note they have probably the best tight end in the nation in JJ Galbraith. He's been a problem for Missouri Valley teams ever since he's lined up. Very, very good with the ball in his hands. He's going to be someone to keep an eye on. He's got 17 receptions already this year for 323 yards and 2 touchdowns. So it'll be interesting to see what our linebackers can do in coverage against him. Spalding and Bach have played lights out, and we'd be remiss if we did not talk about Caleb Franzel. My God.
Franzel is a beast.
Woo.
Time in his
It's like
blitz
he
is
shot out of a
really well.
cannon.
Yeah.
Yep. When he diagnoses, sticks his foot in the ground and goes, man, he's one of the best right now in the Valley. That's for sure. So talk about what your expectations are for the chain gang this game, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were going to be super physical, especially coming off, losing to the guys up north. I think everybody's just super hungry to get out there and, play their best ball. Because honestly, that's all you can do at this point. You got to put it behind you and play the next game. If we want to do what we want to do, we got to play our best ball from here on out. And so,
And when you look at guys like Jared DePriest and Max Balloon, obviously the leaders of the unit, being upperclassmen, who's that voice you think in the locker room for the chain gang that's going to emerge?
I believe it's got to be Jared DePriest. I mean, he's voted captain. He was a voice last year, So, I mean, anything that, I don't know, I'm just saying, I can't wait to watch him play just because, I get so excited just thinking, oh, man, I wish I could be there and, put the helmet on with the guys one more time. But honestly, I just think, I don't know. It's just the guys are so ready to play. I've just been on the phone a few times with some of the guys and just hearing them talk, it gets me excited to go, So,
yeah. So with that being said, do you think that our D-line can take more advantage of them in the passing game with pass rush or shutting down the run?
I think it's a double-edged sword. If you do one well, you're going to get to do the other well. I mean, if we consistently have them behind the sticks, those guys get to go off in the dime package, and you get to see the best pass rushers from the chain gang go eat. So,
which is exactly a great segue into having some guys back. So Johnson's back this week. He'll be rushing off the edge. Zach Johnson's a pivotal guy, another Florida guy. Be really, really important to have him back to create some chaos there in the backfield and get Bauman off his spots. We also get, we'll see, but we could get the X factor for the Jacks back in the lineup this week in Tucker Large. So I don't know if there's any rumblings or if you've heard of anything, maybe keep it close to the chest. But I think that we might see Tuck back, which could be good.
It's the second week in a row that he's been actually listed on the depth chart with the or next to it. So obviously he didn't play last week, but you got to think another week down the road, hopefully, especially with this being probably our last real physical game for at least a little while. Be a good one to come back with or come back for.
And there's so much added juice that comes back when you get one of your dogs to suit up again. Back when, just relating it to my own experience in 2008 when we were up in the Fargo Dome. Don't do the math on that. But when we were back in the Fargo Dome and Ryan Berry gets blasted on like a really nice keeper, which he kept the ball. He's not a running quarterback. Kept the ball, got a nice run, but he was getting examined for a concussion. Ryan Crawford comes in, does a damn good job leading some scoring drives for us. He breaks his wrist on that shitty turf that they got up there. And then Ryan Berry comes back in the game and just leads us on some drives to completely seal it. So that just gives you so much juice when your dogs come back in and they're in the hunt with you, and you got a guy with the caliber of play that Tucker Large is. That obviously speaks volumes. So, yeah, I said Zach Johnson. It was a high school teammate of mine, Zach Wilson.
Yeah,
Zach Wilson. Pardon me.
You were going there, so I wasn't going to interrupt. But me and Zach, we actually went to high school together. So
yeah, I saw that story Midco did with y'all. That's awesome.
Yeah, no,
that's awesome. Man. So cool. What's his forte? Is he you like him off the edge creating some havoc, or is he a good run stuffer? Or what's his go-to?
Honestly, I think just Zach's explosiveness off the edge. I think he has one of the fastest get-offs on the team. And then on top of that, if you watch the Oklahoma State game, I felt like Zach played a really physical game. You might not have got to see that a lot last year just because of who was in front of him, but I feel like first part of this year before the unfortunate injury, he was playing really good ball. So super excited to see him come back and play. I might be a little biased, but, I just super excited for him and, his journey and where he gets to go play. Yeah,
no doubt. Yeah, he's just not only for the depth, but an upperclassman, a guy who's got experience, who's played pivotal snaps. It's going to be good to see him get back out there and be healthy and make his presence known. I think, is it another name I'm going to butcher? Is it Kirschman? Kirschman is not back.
Reese
Kirschman. Yeah. I don't know if he's back. So it's going to be good to at least get one of our dogs back across that D line. Kobe Claiborne's played really well this year, also with some swivel. Kind of crazy seeing a kind of a D line, interior D line body out there on the edge, really, turning his hips and getting upfield and trying to get home to the quarterback. So that's good. All that will be needed because if we do shut down that run game like we have historically done very effectively, just like we did against the Bison, it'll be interesting to see if we can make them one-dimensional this weekend and see how that kind of transpires and plays out on Saturday night. When we look at the defensive side of the ball, they've had some dogs. They have Jack Cochran, who's in the NFL with the Chiefs. They do have some guys who have made a big impact historically. So it's kind of cool to see how those matchups are going to play out with us having just suffered our first loss, and I don't know how 32 FCS contests. So that's just incredible in and of itself to utter. I don't think any of us could have said we would have predicted that. But that being said, that's the reality. So it'll be definitely fascinating to see how Mark exploits some of these defensive looks that they throw at him and how they're going to scheme him up and scheme the offensive unit up as a whole. So what do you guys want to see in terms of the offensive attack? I know, Brian, you're not a huge offensive guy, but you know what you like from the good guys.
Yeah, one thing I just want to see is just the confidence.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see the confidence go up, because when, Mark's confident and everyone else is confident, the ball is going to go the right way. I believe that, Mark's one of the best players in the FCS. Our O-line's been playing really well. Amar's really good. I mean, like you said, you could go down the list and say dog with every player.
Yeah.
So what's holding us back? Are we just not executing? Is the confidence down? I mean, we figured those things out, and I think we're back in Frisco. So
yeah, I agree. Scott, what are you looking for to be exploited in this week's matchup?
Just some creativity that we were maybe lacking. I mean, it's going to be at home. We're going to have the crowd with us, so it should be nice and quiet for us on offense. Just look to get our stars involved and go forward. Just run downhill and wear them out. They got some dudes on their D line that that D line Grace. Not sure how to pronounce it. McQueese Grace, I guess, must be an absolute beast, but I don't know how deep they are. He's probably their best defensive lineman, maybe one of the best in the Valley, but they don't have the depth that NDSU does.
Mm-hmm.
You got to think we just stick to our game. That playbook should open up a little bit more, especially if we got the physical running attack. If Kirby comes back just in time for Halloween, right? Voorhees. It'd be nice to get downhill, mix in our star power a little bit more than we maybe were able to on Saturday. And that comes with the confidence that Brian just brought up. Go get downhill, stay ahead of the sticks, stay on schedule. I think we'll be able to do that if we clean up a lot of the stuff from last weekend. Our coaches are good. Mark, obviously, he doesn't have the stats he did last year, but he's still the same guy. He knows how to prepare. It's our cast of characters is just so unbelievably different from where it was last year. We still have that quarterback that can lead us through that adversity from last week, and he'll have the confidence if he's prepared, which we all know he is. I have all the confidence in the world in our coaching staff and our players to prepare for this game. I think we just stick to our game plan, lean on them, exploit their maybe a little bit lack of depth a little bit, and the ball should bounce our way.
Well put. I think also it's a point to note, Miles Harden is no longer on their roster. Very solid defensive back who's now in the league with the Browns. I think it'll be interesting if we can get them wide receivers and tight ends involved early, just to kind of change the pace up a little bit. And like Brian said as well, and you too, Scott, Mark Gronowski is the guy that you want in these situations to bounce back, control the flow of the game. And I think it's worth discussing. Mark is a football player who happens to play quarterback. And I think we get into these deeply analytical discussions about, throwing mechanics or pocket presence and all that. At the end of the day, Mark's a winner, and he's proven that. Being able to count your number of losses in total on one hand for a college career thus far is friggin' mind-boggling. So I think, we can get into what is he not doing and what is he – yes, he needs to progress. He needs to continue to take strides in the right direction as far as improvement goes in terms of playing the position. But in terms of being a baller and just going out there and willing his team to victory, I was kind of working through my head the other day how many game-winning drives he's had. Montana, Youngstown early on, Southern Illinois in the playoffs, busting long runs, doing what he had to do in that spring campaign.
Yep.
And then Montana stayed at home last year. Yeah. So, I mean, the dude has done it. Proof is in the pudding. So now he just needs to string it together again in this campaign. So moving forward, looking at predictions here, what are we thinking in terms of the crowd, in terms of score, in terms of players of the game? Let's start with impact players of the game first, and we'll go Scott.
Defense, Matt Durant, going to have to guard or defend that Galbraith, big-bodied dude. The Durantula has been playing well all year. I think he's going to have a couple real big plays in this game that could push the Yotes back a little bit. I'll go with Matt Durant's on defense. You guys want to pick a defender first? You want me to keep going?
Yeah, we'll go. We'll pick. Who you got, Brian?
Juice is a great pick, and I like Durantula.
Yeah,
I will be using that from now on. For me, I'm just gonna have to go Spalding or Bach. I mean, I don't know who you pick out of those two, but both of them are super great players. And like you said, the linebackers are going to be pivotal again this week.
Yes, sir. I like those picks, gentlemen. And I was going to say, Scotty, that's a good new nickname for Matt, because I know he goes by Juice. I think that's like what dudes call him. But Durantula, that's a nice little secondary option or first option, depending on your preference. And I'm gonna have to go with you, Brian. I like the law firm. I think Graham will be holding court on Saturday night, and he's gonna have his judgment heard loud and clear. How many more cliches can I sprinkle in there? Little puns. I think it's his tenacity just brings an added element, and same thing with Caleb Francel. So instead of Bach is just Mr. Consistency, right? And sometimes I think we probably take it for granted because he's so consistent. Obviously, that sack he had on Saturday was friggin' huge. That was awesome. But I think it's either, for me, it's going to be his companions, his side guys, Francel or Spalding, that get the job done. So take your pick, flip the coin there. Moving on to offense, I'll kick us off. I'm going to go with Mark. I think he has a calm, collected, poised effort on Saturday that gets us back on the good side of the win column. And I don't care how he does it, but I think he does find some balance. I think that when we need plays made, I think he steps up and just makes a play. And, don't be shy to pick him as well, because I think that might be a theme here.
I'll go. I'm going to go Gus Miller.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know if, I can't watch the tape. I don't know, if the 605 Hogs had their best game, but I believe they do this week. No one's more fired up than Coach Olson and the guys. So that's who I'm going to go with.
Yes, absolutely. I like that pick. I think that Gus was probably ready to flush that last game. That's all I'll say about that. I think that the 605 Hogs did decent, but I don't think that they would evaluate that last game as their best. And what a better opportunity to move on than to take on your in-state opponent at home in prime time. I think Gus gets it done as well. Offensively, I said Gronowski. Who you got, Scott?
For the sake of variety, I was going to say Mark, but for the sake of variety, I think we're going to try to get it into our stars' hands. GFW, that's my pick.
Okay.
Need between 8 and 10 touches, I think. Doesn't have to be big, deep balls. It can, but just mid-range passes. I think if we try to shake it up a little bit, maybe jet sweep, maybe tunnel screen, something like that. It'd be nice to get him a lot more involved than we did last weekend. I'll go with Griffin Wilde. Nice.
Yeah, and I would like to say the game flow kind of determines who we go to and when. But I like your 8 to 10 touches for Griffin there. I do think that we need to get our tight ends more involved. That might sound like some bias coming from me, but I think it just provides more balance and keeps us ahead of the chains when you have that intermediate passing game going. I'd like to see potential tight end screens reintroduced to the mix. I'd like to see some motion into a flare passing going, right? Or just what you'd call a typical out route. I think those things can kind of keep us on schedule, like I said, but 5 touches, I think, from the tight end group would be decent enough. 8 to 10 from Griffin Wilde, 4 to 5 again from Graham Goring. And then when you look at touching the ball from the backfield, I'd like to see at least 5 touches in Chase's hands because he's such an added weapon in that department. If Voorhees is healthy, 5 touches there and at least 10 to 15 spread between the Johnsons. So I think that's what I like there. So in terms of impact players, we knocked that out. Now we're going to move on to our score predictions, right? Like what do we think is going to unfold on Saturday in terms of overall scoring outcome? I don't know what Vegas has it.
Well, I haven't looked.
Maybe Montana Parlay can help us out on that one.
Let's see. I don't know if you listen to Ben and Brendan and those guys. Brendan's insistent that our defensive touchdownless streak against the Yotes will end. It's hard to disagree with him because they've got a lot of weapons. I don't think we hold them without a touchdown, but I don't think they get to 20 points either. Let's go kind of a strange score, maybe like 18-28.
Yeah, so the spread is at 8.5 currently, good guys. I think it's going to be roughly, I'm going to say it'll be 28-20. I don't know that we cover the spread, but I think we get it done. I think they have a lot of offensive weapons. I think they're going to scheme us up pretty good with some native knowledge from JD and then some creativity that maybe we haven't seen on film just yet. Not necessarily in terms of trickeration or anything like that, but in terms of nice little wrinkles that they've added to try to maybe slow down some of our pursuit or just kind of use the field in different ways, getting out on the perimeter in a quick fashion to kind of spell their run game up the middle in the trenches with Tice, because I think we're going to be all over that early. So, yeah, my prediction is 28-20. Good guys. What do you got, Brian?
For me, you got to show me that you guys can put up points. JD was there last year. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the score was 37-3. I say 35-3. Good guys.
Woo! I like it.
I like it. I think the defense comes to play. I think Mark turns it on, and I think we keep the streak alive. So I look forward to it.
I love it.
Hammer the 8.5, boys.
Hammer it. Hammer the 8.5. Brian said it here first. You know what? I do want to touch on some things now that we've wrapped up all the good stuff. There's never been a better time for the Jacks pregame production to put their best foot forward. I know I personally like the new intro that we've got. I think every team probably deserves their own new one for identity. I think, Scott, you echo that as well, and Stack potentially too. I think we've got the music. We've got everything going. We've got to get the game day operation to be much more crisp in terms of making sure the pyrotechnics or the smoke or whatever works in conjunction. And if people can't get that done, then they need to reevaluate who they've got in those spots. I think that's been echoed, and I did a little sample for that. And that's coming all the way down the line from a whole different assortment of fans there. It's just like we've taken our step in terms of the product on the field. We've taken massive steps in terms of our support. We're now one of the toughest places to play in the FCS. And now we just have to put it all together. Because as you can see, there are certain institutions across the country that have a damn good pregame production. So ours needs to be championship standard as well. And if those people can't get it done, they need to find something else to do, to put it bluntly. But that being said, everybody has checks and balances. Make sure you're studying when the team comes out. Make sure you take an average sample of the time it takes them to get out. And then don't cut the music too early, right? Isn't that what you say, Scott?
Yeah, I absolutely love the pride of the Dakotas. But when that place becomes an absolute just cacophonous ruckus, just crazy rock concert with, the Kid Rock, Ba with the Ba, it's crazy. And then we just cut it out. And then you almost can't even hear the pride because it's so quiet compared to what it was. I think it'd be a really good idea to let it ride a little bit. And maybe they don't have time for this before the opening kick, but let the pride have their own spot to play, the pride song, the fight song, because you almost can't hear it after they cut the music off and everyone's like, oh, I guess we're just not going to play the rest of the song, and everyone's psyched and everything. got the goosebumps going, and then it's just off. So I think there's some stuff to iron out. Be nice to get like some actual fireworks. I know out in Missoula, they like to light off some actual fireworks from like the tops of the stands. It's kind of weird when you can see the team standing next to the Stig Center for a while too before they even run out. There's some things to clean up. So I don't know. It's not necessarily it's inconsequential as far as the game goes, but the production value could use a step up. We'll just say that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Brian knows, like, it gives you added juice when you're going through that tunnel, which they added with the blue lights going down it. And then you're hearing the pregame song, and then you have the ball with the ball coming, and then and then it cuts, and then you barely hear the faint aspect of the pride when you're running out there. It's kind of off, but you'll piss off the olds if you do that. I imagine Dan's talking about the band.
Good.
You know, sometimes you need to step into the new era, right?
Mm-hmm.
Step into a new era. They'll get on board when they see how cool it looks too. They'll get on board. With that being said, I think the other aspects of the game day ops have been incredible in terms of getting in the game, Scott.
Yeah.
Seems like, entrances aren't bottlenecking.
Mm-hmm.
Drinks and concessions seem to be on par, which is great. I think I think we'd be remiss if we didn't shout out all the work you did, Brian, for Alex's lemonade stand. Definitely appreciated. And what a great cause that Kevin and Stone and the whole crew over there at FCS Nation is doing to try to combat childhood cancer. So check them out if you haven't already. And please consider.
We got to get money in there for Mark.
Yeah.
We lost to USD last year.
Right.
Just shout out to Chris Schenkel and those guys at Northwestern Mutual who do that. It's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes that, they put on to try to make sure that it runs smoothly. So shout out to those guys and everyone that donated last year. I appreciated it a ton. And I mean, honestly, it's a great time to be a Jackrabbit,
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, it's worth hammering. It's a blue out for us.
Yep.
So wear blue. We're going to be in the all blues, looking like some fierce Smurfs out there. But, I love to see it. But that's our championship garb from 2023, which I was shocked that we came out in. I personally love the throwback tradition that Stig instituted where we wear yellows for in-state rivalry and Hobo Day. But I like the all blues. The all blues are pretty sick. So that's cool. So make sure you guys do it. All right. Make sure you guys show out, make your presence felt, man. Like, Brian, you can speak to it. Montana State last year, we have 9 false start penalties that were forced, with definitely a little added contribution from the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the crowd's huge, the guys are loud, and that end zone where the band's at and the student section going nuts. It's just awesome. So the more fans, the better.
Yeah. And students, make your presence felt. And, it doesn't have to be PG-13, you're a college student. We're supposed to be dumb at times, but keep it relatively respectful. Obviously don't be throwing stuff like we saw at the UT Austin UGA game, but definitely make your noise and make your presence felt as well. Gentlemen, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you everyone who tuned in to the Splitting Hairs podcast. And in case you forgot, San Diego's not a state. Bison spelled with an S, and the Yotes never get it done, specifically Wile E. Coyote. Want to shout out our sponsors one more time, Cottonwood Coffee and Bistro. Love having them. They've been with us since the beginning. Before you head to the game on Saturday night, make sure you get your eats in at the Bistro, and you get amped with the caffeine from either the Cottonwood Coffee spot on Main or the Bistro itself. Get you some espresso. Don't forget you can order stuff online. They also have K-Cups for those who want some instant coffee options. And then, shout out to Utamark Insurance. When life throws you curveballs, if you need help with healthcare products or home insurance coverage, make sure you check them.
Did we lose you, Kyle?
I thought it was my internet.
Oh, yeah, so did I. Well, I think we lost Kyle, everyone. I don't know if he's going to hop on, finish off the sponsors, but, thanks to all our sponsors here. I don't have the full list, but I guess until next week, go big, go blue.
Go Jacks.
All right.